Also, the Mower County Historical Society has been collecting photos, artifacts, and information related to Mower County history since 1947. The collection is housed in 21 buildings located at the east end of Mower County Fairgrounds in Austin, Minnesota. It features a schoolhouse, blacksmith shop, a lot of others, and include trains. Also, the Mower County Fair is held on the grounds year-round, and visiting the museum is free, as well as the fair is as well.
Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 1979 was built by American Car and Foundry in St. Charles, Missouri in 1928 and is a baggage car. Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 1979. Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 1979 is one of many streamlined passenger coaches that are still around and were once used on the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad many years ago, and was used for carrying baggage inside. And also, this car was like probably on the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Milwaukee Road for short. Hiawatha train. Then later, Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 1979 was retired and came to be part of the Mower County Historical Society in Austin, Minnesota, where it is preserved today. Also, you can even check out the interior of the car. And you'll also find some exhibits inside as well. Also, in 2015, some of the windows on the car were vandalized and rocks were thrown at the glass and broke. So eventually the windows should be fixed. So whatever you do, don't ever try throwing rocks at windows. Don't ever be those people. Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 3355 was built by Pullman in 1910 and is a passenger coach. Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 3355 is one of many streamlined passenger coaches that are still around and were once used on the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad many years ago and was used for passengers on board. Also, this car was like probably used on the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul's Milwaukee Road for short. Hiawatha train. Then later, the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 3355 was retired and came to be part of the Mower County Historical Society in Austin, Minnesota, where it is preserved today. Also, you can even check out the interior of the car as well. Also, in 2015, some of the windows on the car were vandalized and rocks were thrown at the glass and were broken. So eventually got the windows repaired. So whatever you do, don't ever try throwing rocks at windows. see right behind me is Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 1004. Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 1004 was built by Baldwin in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1900 and is the 180th steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 460 10-wheeler type steam locomotive and is a G8 class steam locomotive. Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 1004 was originally built as a B4 class steam locomotive. Also, the locomotive was originally numbered as Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 305. Then in 1907 it was renumbered as Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 735. Then in 1912 renumbered to Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 4335. Then in 1920 it was renumbered as Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 2604. Then in 1938 was renumbered to Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 1004 and reclassed as G8. Also, this locomotive spent most of the career on the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad for a long time. This locomotive is one of 25 rebuilt to the G8 class, and this locomotive might have hauled passenger or freight or both when used on the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad. Also in 1957, Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 1004 was retired and donated to the city of Austin and was moved to the Mower County Historical Society on panel tracks and sat in a fence on the grounds. And then later a building was constructed around the locomotive, and there's clearly enough space to view the whole locomotive to get a picture of it. But I think I knew how to solve the problem of how to get a whole pic of the locomotive. Also, Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 1004 is the only surviving Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 460 left in the world today, and can be found here on display at the Mower County Historical Society in Austin, Minnesota, where it is today, and you can even check out the locomotive and even visit the cab and even sit where the engineer and fireman used to sit and maybe blow the whistle, I guess, and you can even ring the bell. And there are times it is open to the public for tours when tour season, and I think it's a free visit on your own during the fair. And I'm also afraid it's impossible the whistle could be blown. And also, if you're wanting to get a good photo, you might have noticed a luggage cart near the locomotive. And if it's sturdy enough for someone to stand on, then it would be a good spot, 'cause I stood on it and did manage to get a good picture of the entire steam engine. That's how it's done. What you see right behind me is the Oakland train depot. The train depot was once located on a branch line from Madison, Wisconsin to Austin, Minnesota on the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad, and also was used for passenger service and where passengers would arrive on a train from somewhere or board a train to somewhere. Also, the depot was built in 1886 and then retired and originally located in Oakland, Minnesota. It was originally located in Oakland, Minnesota, and then later moved to Austin, Minnesota in 1964. and part of the Mower County Historical Society. Also, the depot has exhibits inside, including the model railroad as well. Okay, so looking around in the depot, so show the exhibits. Look at all these. And here's a picture of a Milwaukee Road Streamline diesel. And here's some old books and timetables and such. And back here, here's the model railroad. And it doesn't look like it's running right now, but it could soon. And pretty cool. There's a small train right here, a Milwaukee Road number 105, and a caboose number 07462. There's an old typewriter, a whistle, old lanterns and such. Pretty cool. Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 0774 was built by the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul shops in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1910 and is a wooden caboose. Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 0774 was used on the back of freight trains many years ago as the train crew's office when being used on the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad. Also, Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 0774 was one of the several Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul cabooses that have been built and have been around as well and used on trains. Then in the 1950s, Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 0774 was retired and then came to be part of the Mower County Historical Society in Austin, Minnesota, where it is preserved today. Also, as it's on display, you can even visit the interior of it and check out the inside as well.